Ross grabbed some clams for the ugly duckling to eat, but before the ugly duck could start, a clam cheekily clamped its mouth shut, and soon all the clams ended up in Fink's belly. Afterwards, Fink took them to strip honey. He asked Ross to mimic a bear's roar to draw bees, while he sneaked into the hive for a feast. After feasting, he even remembered to share a bit with the ugly duckling. Fink, just to fill his own belly, decided to raid the bear's honey stash, which of course woke up the grumpy bear. The bear, having had enough bullying in his life, chased the two down all afternoon, and so they spent the whole day hustling just to fill Fink's belly. Realizing the ugly duckling hadn't eaten, Fink dug and found worms, letting it feast. Ross completed his phase mission. For the ugly duckling to survive, they need a shelter now. Let's go. Ross dragged Fink to the forest, determined, quickly becoming a mini lumberjack, gathering tons of wood. In the forest, they met Mr. Halley, whom Fink described as the most creative, spending days chewing a huge tree. Oh, Halley, just give it up. I don't care about the outcome, after all, it's the wonderful process that counts. Then Fink and Ross snuck over to Halley's house, planning to borrow a few ideas for their shelter. When Halley finally finished his work and returned home ready to hit the hay, he suddenly found his house had been visited. This was Ross' high-tech scan, magnifying their shelter instantly by several times, turning it into a mini-mansion. The ugly duckling was not idly there, always helping out, and after several hours of effort, they finally built a perfect shelter. Talk about construction skills. Ross even gave the ugly duckling an adorable name, Little Squeaker. Just as Fink was enjoying his soft bed, Mr. Halley staged, "Your house is a blatant rip-off of my original design." Halley's sudden arrival scared Little Squeaker back to childhood traumas. Little Squeaker dashed around the room in a frenzy, and Fink had no choice but to spin a happy fairy tale to finally lull him to sleep. Meanwhile, the big bad who intended to snack on Little Squeaker suddenly felt a protective impulse and dove into Ross' arms. Deep down, he felt lonely too, but he had to play tough just to survive. As time went by, Little Squeaker grew up, but he still had 0 friends. Other critters just scattered like ghosts at the sight of him. Everyone thought he was weird. Uncle Rich gave his brilliant advice for teaching Little Squeaker to swim. "You're almost alive when you're sinking." Ross saw some sense, so placed Little Squeaker on a board. The little one, scared, was fleeing when Fink shoved him down. Moments later, after a struggle in the water, Little Squeaker was shocked to find out he could actually swim. Thus Ross successfully completed his second mission. To prevent drowning, he turned into a mini-sub, trailing Little Squeaker closely. One day, while swimming through a patch of reeds, Little Squeaker spotted many little friends who looked just like him and excitedly swam over. But upon seeing his hilarious dog paddle style, the other ducklings burst into laughter. I heard his parents were monsters. They planned to take this oddball out, and upon sensing Little Squeaker was in danger, Ross charged into the lake. However, after escaping danger, Little Squeaker was snagged by a big fish. In a critical moment, Ross saved him by snagging the fish. But just then, the bullies returned. This time, they mocked and spilled the tea on Little Squeaker. "It killed your mom." Everyone was already in the know. Turns out that when Ross fell onto the island, he accidentally squished Little Squeaker's mom, leaving the little guy in shock. Little Squeaker decided to leave alone. Ross sat lost on the mountaintop, unsure how to face him, with Fink beside him. "A flock of swallows migrate south. Winter's coming. Little Squeaker must learn to fly fast." Realizing this, Ross returned to Little Squeaker with a somewhat stern approach. Whether or not he forgave him, he had to teach Little Squeaker to fly. He analyzed the swallow's motions, gave it his all, but Little Squeaker still couldn't take off. To help Little Squeaker practice better, Ross worked overtime crafting a runway just to help Little Squeaker take off with his speed. With Ross' help, Little Squeaker flew up, but not knowing how to land, he plunged towards the forest. Luckily, Ross arrived just in time to catch him. To better teach Little Squeaker to fly, Ross brought in Owl as a special mentor. From the owl, Little Squeaker learned he couldn't fly like others due to a birth defect. Although his structure wasn't built for straight flying, he excelled at turning and spiraling, succeeding in free flight thanks to the owl's help. Little Squeaker gained Elder Swallow's approval thanks to Ross' support in joining this migration. "I get it, squeak, Little Squeaker. But you wouldn't understand. Look, are there any others as small as me?" Elder Swallow told Little Squeaker Ross saved his life, otherwise he'd be dead long ago. That accident not only took his mother's life, but also taught him that life is always filled with surprises. "Goodbye, Ross. It's been a real. You're amazing, though I can't quite figure out your creature type," Little Squeaker candidly said. "Right now, I'm a bit of a mess, feeling shy to face the world," Rich Uncle whispered. Then the migration moment arrived, meaning they were about to part ways. Ross placed Little Squeaker on his shoulder, giving him one last running start. Watching Little Squeaker drift away, Ross finished his last task, heart heavy, tears falling. He resolved and ran forward desperately, just to see Little Squeaker one last time, but contact was so hard, his retreating figure felt like the final reliance. A feather drifted down gently, becoming Ross' last token and a symbol of his longing. After Little Squeaker left, Ross lingered at the cliff for a while until Fink finally found him. "Winter's here, time for hibernation." Fink bid farewell. Ross, done, activated his head launcher, signaling, "Subscribe to my channel."